18 years after his conviction of double murder, Scott Peterson is back in San Mateo, California, hoping to get a new trial. Peterson was convicted of killing his wife Lacey and unborn son Connor in 2004. One of the jurors who helped put him away has admitted to being less than truthful on her jury questionnaire. Rochelle Nice, labeled strawberry shortcake during the trial because of her red hair, was the first witness in what's expected to be a week-long hearing. At issue here is whether the inaccuracies that Rochelle Nice's questionnaire had constitute enough damage to warrant a new trial. Joining us now to discuss this is someone who knows this case better than anybody. It's Scott Peterson's sister-in-law, Janie Peterson. She even went to law school and earned a law degree during this process of 18 years. Hard to imagine that it was 18 years ago that these convictions took place. Janie, good morning to you. I know you're out in California watching this very closely. The first day is in the books. Rochelle Nice took the stand under oath and talked about her questionnaire and the answers to it. And a couple of things that did come out in this hearing, that she wrote that she was never a victim of a crime, or that a family member was not a victim of the crime. She checked no to that. And it came out that indeed she had asked for a restraining order while being pregnant because she accused a woman of stalking her and basically threatening her. And then also a potential domestic violence victim also in 2001. She brushed them off. You were in the courtroom. In your opinion, and I know you're biased, how did she come across?
I think she's testifying in a very frank manner. I think the biggest thing that came out Friday was we now have a third document that she has signed under penalty of perjury that had false information on it. When we went into court, we knew that her jury questionnaire contained false information. As you said, she indicated she'd never been the victim of a crime. She'd never testified in court, which she had. She'd never been a party to a lawsuit, and she was. So the jury questionnaire had false information. She also signed a declaration in conjunction with this case about 2 years ago. That contained false information, which led her to ask for immunity on Friday before she testified. And then while she was testifying about one of those restraining orders, she said that she really was not fearful for the life of her unborn child. She just filed it to be spiteful. So that's a third document that was signed under penalty of perjury with false information on it. What
do you say to someone who's like, oh, who cares? You know, there was 11 other people on that jury. It's not like she went in there and wrestled them up and convinced them. The facts are there. The jury, at the end of the day, after trial, Scott Peterson was convicted. What she did wasn't enough to warrant this to be overturned. Your response?
Well, as our appellate attorney Cliff Gardner says it very well, that our Constitution entitles you to a jury of 12 impartial jurors, not 11. So this is a really big deal. It's incredibly hard to overturn convictions because our justice system protects jurors. So they take juries, the courts take juries very seriously, and because of that, this is a very serious issue.
Do you believe that she was a force on this panel? I know that the judge is going to be hearing during this period of time, during this 5-day hearing, from some of those other jurors. Do you think that she was an actual force that did make a difference in that deliberation room?
Well, every single juror in a criminal case makes a difference because you need a unanimous verdict, especially in a capital case. So absolutely she was a force. Every one of those 12 jurors was a force and needed to be truthful on their questionnaire and needed to be impartial.
After the conviction, after it was all over, she did something extraordinary, and that was she wrote to Scott Peterson on several occasions, and he apparently wrote back. What do you know about those letters, those correspondence between the two, and to what extent will they be brought into this hearing and to prove what?
Well, what's at issue here? The first thing that's at issue is, and it's Scott's burden to prove that there was juror misconduct, and juror misconduct is simply having false information on your questionnaire. So proving that is not the big problem. The next step, the burden then shifts to the prosecution, and they have to prove that she was not biased. So that's when all these letters are going to come in. When we see that the questionnaire was filled out improperly, there is a presumption of bias. So then the prosecution is going to have to show that she was not biased. And that's where the letters are going to kind of be, maybe some different parts of the letters will come into play. Parts of maybe media interviews that she did, part of the book that she wrote will go to show her bias in the situation.
Following the guilty verdicts, there was a press conference held by a number of jurors, and she was one of them. And during that press conference, she referred to Connor as little man. And it then later was divulged that she had referred to her own child as little man during her own pregnancy. What is that going to be something that's brought up? To what extent, and what do you think that means?
Well, I think it means that she nicknamed the Scott and Lacey's unborn child, Connor, the same name. So she was asked that question on Friday, whether she had that nickname for her child, any of her children, and she said she did not recall. But as you said, you can see on the court website in the offer of proofs that there will be witnesses who testify that she very well might have nicknamed her own child Little Man prior to serving as a juror.
She said on Friday, I had no anger for Scott Peterson before this trial. I came in as a juror. And then, yes, I did have some anger after I heard all of the evidence. That, to me, is a reasonable response. Do you disagree with that? Do you think that she came in with an agenda? And if you do, why do you think that?
I don't have an opinion about that. I think that's what these hearings are here to establish. I think legally there's a problem with how she filled out her questionnaire. It's going to create a presumption of bias, and the prosecution's going to have a difficult time establishing that she was not biased. Because when you look at the body of information we have, whether it's her history before the trial, during the trial, or after the trial, there's not going to be a lot of evidence to present that shows her not being biased.
In the 18 years since his conviction, your brother-in-law, Scott Peterson, has maintained his innocence. His family, including yourself, has supported him over this period of time. To what degree do you have a sense of confidence, hope? How would you qualify what you're feeling, what he's feeling right now in terms of this probably last opportunity, potentially, for a new trial?
Well, we have a lot of hope, and part of that is because this is not our last opportunity. So we continue to have an ongoing investigation. We still have appeals that we can pursue in federal court. But this claim in state court is a very strong claim. And so we have hope and we have confidence in our attorneys and our legal team, which, just to correct you earlier, I'm not quite an attorney yet. I graduate in a couple months. But and we know that Scott will someday have a new trial and have an opportunity to show the new evidence we have, show that he is innocent. There's a lot of things that went wrong in this case, and this jury misconduct issue is just the latest. So we're glad we have this opportunity in court to potentially overturn his conviction and get him a new trial.
The Supreme Court of California had an issue with this, and that's why they sent it back down to this court and said, please investigate this, figure this out. The other decision that the Supreme Court made was that he should not have been on death row, and now he is no longer on death row. He's no longer facing the death penalty. To what degree does that bring you, him, the family, a sense of relief, that decision by the Supreme Court, and even this one?
The decision that overturned his death penalty was actually, we actually knew right away, right when he was sentenced to death, that the death sentence would never stand because of the error the judge made. It was a pretty established law, but it just took 18 years to do it. So we always knew he would never be executed because of that mistake. But I have to say, when the death sentence was actually overturned, there was a sense of relief. It was official. That the state wouldn't be sticking a needle in his arm.
To what degree, I know you're very involved, to what degree is Scott Peterson involved in his own defense?
Very much so. I mean, he's he reads all the briefing. He does case research. He's very involved in participating in his defense.
What's his day-to-day like now? He's no longer at San Quentin.
Correct. He's currently at the county jail. County jails are quite a bit different than prison, so they're very different day to day. And I haven't heard all the nuances of how his day goes, but it's a lot more difficult to communicate with him in county jail. He has a lot less. Well, actually, now he technically has email, which he didn't have before. So, but his, doesn't have the same amount of paper and pens, and it's just a little bit, it's different. But he will only be at this county jail, I think, within 10 days after the end of this hearing this week. He'll be moved back to prison while we wait for a ruling on this hearing.
And finally, if he does get a new trial, in your estimation, different outcome a second time around?
Absolutely. Wow. I am confident that Scott will never be convicted again.
Why not?
Just because of the body of evidence we have. The difference in the evidence we have from his first trial to this trial, you will never see a jury convict Scott Peterson of murder again.
All right, Janie Peterson, thanks for your time this morning in California. Again, day 2 of that ongoing hearing. It's expected to take another 3 to 4 days. Will resume today in San Mateo County at the same courthouse that Scott Peterson was convicted of double murder 18 years ago. The judge will not make a decision at the end of this. She'll have 90 days to issue a decision on whether or not Scott Peterson should get a new trial.